Hey everybody, welcome back to A Phone Call with Freedom. I am your host, Sarah Jane. Thanks for showing up in my corner of the world where we talk the universe. I featured on another podcast last night, and one of my friends that were there asked me a question that I have not yet been asked, although I do know that it is a topic that's up for evaluation. And that is the theme of round earth or flat earth. I want to share my experience last night. And you guys know me. If you've been following my work, then you know I'm just like a sponge. I love to soak up as much information as I can, and that'll create my own belief. And quite frankly, does it really matter at this point in time if you believe that the world's round or flat? That's another really good question. After last night, there's a part of me that kind of feels like, well, knowledge is power, and it might affect the way that you move through life, which is something that kind of sounds funny. It's like, why would it affect how I move through life if I think the world is round or flat? But I want to share some of the conversations that we had last night. So my friend said, I recently feel like I converted. We all started laughing and we're like, oh, you're a flat earther, are you? We started laughing. And he said, you got to watch this documentary. They explain it so well. I was like, okay, hey, like I said, I'm a sponge. I'm totally fine. Let's soak up whatever. So we sit down and we watch this documentary, which I highly recommend everybody watch. Again, I mean, I could say this till I'm blue in the face. Knowledge is power. Even if it doesn't resonate with you, to educate yourself, to find out more about your reality, your world, I think that's very important. The information's not just going to be taught to us anymore. We can't rely on the information that's been taught. So we have to self-educate. So I think it's important. I've watched many documentaries that I actually disagree with, but I still think the motion of watching them and understanding the information allowed me a choice point in my life, and I think that's important for everybody to have that choice point, especially right now when it comes to what do you believe about your purpose, about why you're here, about this world and how it works. So the documentary is called Level With Me, and you can find it right here on YouTube. There was a lot of specifics in there, and then there was still a lot of questions that I had at the end of it. So I have not gone either way. But what I can tell you is that I do believe that what we've been taught is not accurate. And I do believe that there is more information regarding this realm than what we've been disclosed, than what has been disclosed, right? It's pretty interesting. They talk about some type of fermentation above. The sky doesn't actually go up into space the way that it's been demonstrated that it does. There's a couple conspiracy theories that are kind of hacked open. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it all comes to your perspective. But the reason I'm sharing this is because it's so important to evaluate what your options are. And they also talk about, toward the end, you have to stay for the whole thing. It's only about an hour. But toward the end, they talk about some events that I feel there's a good possibility could unfold come 2024. And like I said, everything's open to your opinion and your discretion. But I do feel like there is some type of agenda unfolding of sorts, and what's coming next is the big question. And I think a lot of us already have that answer. So to see a documentary like this where people were just bold enough to come together and say, no, that's not right, and we know what's getting ready to happen next, and we're going to be prepared for that, I think that's important. They talk about the incredible technology of holograms and the capabilities of a perfected hologram, what that could look like for us as a collective. I also really liked how I think pretty much everyone that was telling the story was a man, okay? And of course, I'm a feminist, I'm a woman. But we've been conditioned that the men are the leaders, the men are the tough ones, the men are the protectors almost. And to see a group of very well-educated men of all ages come together and say, wait a minute, the collective has something we have to look at here. What are we gearing up to experience next? How are we going to handle this best? There was just a sense of protection. There was a sense of leadership. And of course, I'm all for, women being right there and right up front. But I think for where we're at in our collective, I felt protected. I felt, and I know that's something that comes from within myself, but I did. I felt protected. I felt secure. I felt like, okay, these are a group of people that are willing to evaluate other alternatives about things that are unfolding on the planet. And they're willing to step up and say, no, this is what I believe, and nobody's going to change that. They're willing to step up against some of the structures that we have now and say, hey, this is my theory, and this is the levels we've been able to prove it at. This is everything that I have, and we're going to disclose this to the public for free on YouTube, right? There was a sense of security and authenticity in the documentary. Today's podcast episode, I think I just really wanted to spread the awareness of that documentary, because even if it's something you disagree with, in the event that something does unfold in 2024, if there's a seed planted already about the fact that it could be staged or it could be not real, or we can prepare for this mentally ahead of time, I think that's very important information for the collective to have. I am not saying that I fully agree with everything that I watched in the documentary. Like I said, I have not made a decision on whether I believe, Earth is round or flat or however this dimension looks. But I do believe that what we've been taught is a lie. And I'm in search of finding a truth that resonates for me so that my survival while I'm here on Earth feels good. I want to have a belief about this world that makes sense. So I am in search of a better belief than the one that I've been taught. And like I said, to see so many men of different genres, different ages step forward and say, hey, we've been able to come together and put together all these tactics and stats, and this is the information that we're presenting with the collective. That was powerful, and I think everybody should watch it for sure. Some of the documentary was a little bit difficult to digest because of everything I've been taught. They talk about how some people will defend some of the structures that we have. They might not even know anything about it, but they'll fully defend it. And that is a result of conditioning. That is because from the second you were born in, some of these structures were structures that you were told you could trust, right? Our parents, our grandparents, they were involved in these structures. So there's a defense there from some of us for some of the structures that we have, and that is a result of the conditioning. I remember, years ago, 5 o'clock, everybody's sitting down around the TV and you're watching the news because we thought that it was going to be a source of information that was going to assist us in becoming a better person, right? Now we know what's happening around the world. To find out that I was actually sitting down at 5 o'clock to be programmed and conditioned for my mind to absorb harmful information about the world. That was painful. That was very painful when I came to that realization. I actually literally had to mourn. I really did. I had to mourn the fact that I had been lied to from the government, which was a structure that I was taught was here for our highest good. In some fashions, it's almost like quite literally being stabbed in the back by a best friend, right? This is something that you're raised with and that you're taught loves you and supports you. And while I'm not talking on the individual level, but the collective level of the government, I mean, at this point in time, everybody is suffering, so I don't feel that the job is being done as far as the whole purpose of a government. Obviously, I think there's layers to what is unfolding right now on Earth. But this is why I think it's so important for people to evaluate their options and to slowly begin the process of understanding that you are going to have to watch you. You are going to have to take care of you. You are going to have to evaluate and ask questions for you. There was a couple points in the documentary where I could feel myself defend some of the things that we had been taught, and then I'd have to like settle back down and open my mind up. Like, just listen. You don't have to take it in as yours. Just observe this opinion. By the end of it, I felt like I have already done a lot of this work, right? I've been doing this for years where like I said, I went through a mourning process originally. My father was sick for a very long time, and it was in that space that I learned what things really are and how they really work. To the insurance company, my father was a number. He wasn't a person. The people that I was dealing with the insurance company, great people. The doctors I was dealing with, great people. Okay, I'm not saying that the people aren't great. The people are just doing their job. They're just following the rules. They're just doing their job. It's the bigger structures, and it's whoever is at the top of the spectrum that nobody sees. They're not doing the work. They're not showing their face, but yet they're mandating what the structures look like. And at the bottom of the structure was the man trying to get help from the insurance company, and instead it was like, well, either you're good enough or you're not good enough. That was eye-opening for me. My father was one of 5 people to have an entire bowel transplant at that point in time, and he was denied rehab because of price purposes. You can't take somebody and have a major transplant on their entire intestine and not send them to a rehab facility. My thoughts of what would make sense is you go through the surgery, you stay in the hospital for a couple weeks while you heal up, then you move into a rehab facility where he can learn to walk again, and they can monitor to make sure that the part's okay for a few weeks, and then they shift him home. That makes total sense to me. You can't take a man that's fragile, and this was his second transplant at that point. And he was so fragile, and my parents are divorced, so he didn't have anybody at home. It was me. I was treated like I was his wife. The whole time I had to fight, just to get basic care. It was definitely eye-opening. I went through stages of anger and then sadness, disappointment. Eventually it got to a point where I just realized this wasn't something I could trust. This wasn't something that is truly for the people. It was about adding to the stress. It was about becoming a number. It was about belittling somebody that already needed help. My experience opened my eyes to what was going on. You really don't think it's that big of a deal when you're just paying into insurance, you're working your day to day, but you're healthy, you're doing your thing. It's like, no, this is good. This is going to be good. If I ever need anything, I'm going to be taken care of. It's a whole nother ball game when someone's dying and you need the assistance and the assistance isn't there. It's a whole nother perspective. I was no longer okay with participating in some of the things that keep the system up and running after that. I started educating myself and I moved into being an entrepreneur. I started educating myself on the tax system. I started implementing my knowledge about tax loopholes, how to legally work around the system. I just was no longer going to participate in a conglomerate that didn't truly have humanity's highest good in mind. I'm a pure person. I love humanity. I love people. We're seeing so much crazy chaos in the world, but I don't think a lot of that is a result just because people suck, like everybody thinks. The conversation needs to change. Majority of what's happening in the world is a result of all of us having brain damage. And this is primarily from our way of living. The food that we eat is tearing us apart. We're given fluoride right away, all the time as a child. Our toothpaste, our deodorants. We wear shoes on a regular basis. The body was designed to reconnect to Earth. Earth is like a battery for the body. Anytime we have stress or worry and we walk outside and we're barefoot, the body will automatically send that energy into Earth to be transmuted, and it will then recharge the body. Most of us, let me ask you something. When's the last time you walked barefoot in the grass? There's a lot of us that very rarely ever walk barefoot in the grass, and that's a problem. I am excited overall to be here, to be alive on Earth at this time. I think there's a lot of things that we have to look forward to, but we haven't quite hit that breaking point yet, although I do believe it's coming. And like I mentioned in this documentary, they do talk about what they believe we're gearing up for to experience in 2024. And I have to say that I do agree with. I do agree with the information about what's coming. I'm going to leave that there because I want you guys to watch the documentary. But I would love to hear what you guys think after you watch it. Like I said, it's only about an hour long, but I would love to hear what you think. And my recommendation is to watch it with an open mind. I'm not persuading anybody to believe what the information that's being portrayed. I'm just simply encouraging you to educate yourself in every fashion possible. Look up as much information as you possibly can and begin to develop a belief structure about yourself and about this world that is going to serve your survival, right? This is about learning how to maintain our peace. If the world is falling apart, but the people stay in peace, then guess what? The world can't fall apart. We, the people, are powerful. We are very, very, very powerful. And I think it starts on an individual level, taking back our power and making decisions for ourselves as far as what we're going to believe and how we're going to navigate and where we're going to energize. When fear is being crammed down your throat, and then you finally decide to say, I don't want to taste that anymore. I don't want to eat the negativity the way that I have been. And you start focusing on something else. You take away the power of anybody that's not in alignment with the highest good. I am definitely an advocate of you as an individual being empowered and being loved and being supported. And many of us are dealing with levels of healing the physical body. As I had mentioned earlier, the brains. There's been all types of scientific studies done about the brains. And there was a doctor, Daniel Amen, if I remember correctly, Dr. Daniel Amen. And he talks about having the capability to research on the brains of people in prison. What he discovered was anybody that was involved in some type of violence or crime had severely damaged brains. Now, obviously, there's something that we have to do, right? If we have people that have damaged brains and they're out here running around, we still have to correct the problem in some way, but we have to change the conversation from, hey, these people are criminals, to, hey, like, scientifically, we are hurting. Our bodies are hurting. Our brains are hurting. Everything that we've been subject to over the years has been to make us what we are today, what we see in our reality. We're violent, we're angry, and this is because behind the scenes, it's like being poisoned. Over time, you start to go crazy. I believe there's an interview with Jay Shetty and Dr. Daniel Amen as well on Jay Shetty's podcast. So you definitely check that out if you haven't already checked that out. That was a pretty good one because he talks about the example that I just gave. I don't know exactly what I'm going to end up believing at the end of the day, but I feel empowered just by saying that's okay. I might not know what I'm going to believe, but I'm not believing any one thing anymore. You have to open yourself up to possibilities. You have to educate yourself. I highly recommend checking out that documentary. It is called Level with Me, and it's right here on YouTube. So definitely check that out, and then circle back around and leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought about it. Like I said, I'm not pushing the belief on anybody. I'm just curious, and I think it's information that needs to be spread, and give people a fighting chance to evaluate their options about what they want to believe and about what's happening in the world, and then put together a belief that works for you, that serves you, something that makes life seem a little bit more thrilling, a little bit more entertaining, a little less negative, a little less hateful. I think overall, whether you believe the exact information that's in the documentary or not, the fact is people are stepping out. They're coming together, they're standing together, they're stepping out, and they're encouraging evaluation, and they're diving deep, and we're looking for answers. We're no longer going to take answers that don't make sense or answers without proven information. We are just too far along in our evolution for people just to take whatever we're told. That's not going to continue happening, and that makes me happy. That makes me proud to be alive at this time. The media really pushes that the world's fallen to hell in a handbasket and everybody's really shitty, but I truly believe it's all a part of the process of breaking apart the lies and the deceit that have been unfolding here. I also believe that there are a lot of really good people out here, and they're fighting for answers. They're looking for answers. They're not scared to step out and say, hey, this is what I found. And that makes me extremely proud to be alive at this time. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for me. It keeps me moving in the right direction. And then, of course, hop over to my website at innersarah, INNERSARAH.com. Subscribe that way so that you get notified when my book comes out. If you're into card reads, I do a segment called Read with SJ every Thursday and Sunday. So check out some of the other videos on the YouTube channel. We always have a good time over there. And then, of course, I just want to thank you guys again so much for your love and support. It's been pretty interesting, and I'm really eager to spread some of this information and just encourage people to think for themselves and let you know that you're not alone in the process. That being said, I am excited to see you right back here next Wednesday with me for another phone call with freedom.